Due to concrete indications about a possible attack, police in the western German city of Essen ordered a shopping mall in the center of town to stay closed on Saturday morning. As more than 100 police officers searched the compound, the shopping center and the adjacent parking lot stayed closed into the early afternoon. According to an official police Twitter account, police also boosted their numbers in the city's main train station, although trains were still running. Following major radical Islamist attacks in France and Belgium, and after a failed asylum seeker from Tunisia drove a truck into a Christmas market in December, killing 12 people, Germany is on high alert.
Frightening scene out of Germany, a man wielding an axe injuring 9 people at a train station. Kitty Logan is following the story this morning and has details for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Shannon. Well, police say the alleged attacker is a 36-year-old man. He was originally from Kosovo but had permanent residency in Germany. Now, this suspect first went on the rampage on a train. Passengers pushed him off, but he continued to attack people at Düsseldorf station, injuring 9 with an axe. 3 of those were seriously hurt. 2 Italian tourists and a teenage girl are amongst those injured. Now, police say they were alerted to this attack shortly before 9 p.m. local time. 600 police, including special units, were involved in that response, and the station was cordoned off. Now, police were able to follow the suspect immediately after the attack until he jumped from a bridge near the station. He was seriously injured in that fall and is now being treated in hospital. Police say they've seen evidence the suspect is a diagnosed schizophrenic. They also say he was acting alone. There is no evidence of any terrorist motive or any religious or political agenda. Now, also according to police, the suspect has told them he wanted to be shot dead by their officers. Now, the scale of this police response indicates just how jumpy German authorities are about the potential of another extremist attack. Prosecutors say that this suspect will be charged with 9 counts of manslaughter.
If it seems like Colorado's weather has been unusually hot, dry, and windy, you're right. The combination of record-high temperatures and below-average rainfall has forced the eastern half of the state into a moderate drought.
I don't know if I would say worrisome, but more being closely watched.
And Becky Bollinger is one of the people keeping an eye on it. She and the rest of her team at the Colorado Climate Center in Fort Collins monitor drought conditions statewide. An important job, especially after fires scorched tens of thousands of acres on the eastern plains this week.
Right now we're really in a make or break type of time of year.
She says March will set the tone as we head into the heart of fire season.
If we had a good March storm between 5 and 10 inches, you get that wet snow that you get typically in March. That would really saturate the soils.
But if the rain misses the eastern plains, a warm, windy summer could be trouble.
Tens of thousands of supporters of ousted South Korean President Park Geun-hye rallied in Seoul on Saturday. Unrest has been growing since Friday when Park was removed from office by Constitutional Court over a corruption scandal. 3 people died and dozens more were injured after demonstrations in the capital Seoul turned violent. A spokesperson for the former president said Park will stay in the presidential Blue House for now until her private residence in the south of Seoul is ready. The country's election authority said polls to choose a new president will be held on or before May 9th.
Organizers of Boston's St. Patrick's Day Parade said that gay veterans will be allowed to march in this year's parade. The South Boston Allied War Veterans Council announced on the parade's Twitter account that it had signed an acceptance letter for out vets to participate. A lawyer for out vets said Friday that the group looked forward to representing LGBTQ veterans. The lawyer said, "We are honored and humbled by all the outpouring of support that has been displayed for our LGBTQ veterans, who are one of the most underrepresented demographics in our veterans community."
The Great Barrier Reef isn't doing so great. Australia's government just said the reef is having a major bleaching event for the 2nd year in a row. Last year, the same thing killed off 22% of its corals. Bleaching happens when corals get stressed from rising water temperatures. The animals purge their algae and are left completely white. An aerial survey showed the effects of climate change have now reached the central part of the reef, which remained relatively untouched in 2016. A bleaching event won't necessarily kill kill corals, but it does make them more vulnerable, especially when they happen back to back. The corals don't have time to recover. Australian officials are urging governments around the world to stand by the Paris Agreement and reduce greenhouse gas emissions to protect the reef. The Marine Park Authority will take another survey next week to assess over 1,000 other reefs along the Great Barrier Reef.
In a bid for Tokyo to hold the 2020 Olympic Games, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe promised to ensure the environmental safety of Japan in 2013.
Let me assure you, the situation is under control.
But the level of nuclear radiation detected recently at Reactor 2 at the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant was deadly. Based on pictures taken by TEPCO robots that entered the vessel of the reactor, the radiation level inside reached 650 sieverts per hour. A brief exposure to that would easily kill a person.
The top priority is transparent information. Tourists have the right to know.
Pollution's never a good thing, and if we can keep it as clean as possible, that's best for everyone.
TEPCO said decommissioning the reactors would be time-consuming.
We are collecting valuable data in order to clean up the nuclear fuel inside the reactor. Decommissioning of the entire power plant could take more than 3 decades.
More than 5,000 people are still working around the clock to clean up the plant. According to Japan's Ministry of Economy, it will take nearly $19 billion to decommission the plant. In order to collect that huge amount of money, TEPCO has relied on government subsidies and raised power charges several times. It's hard to tell how long the Japanese people will continue to pay for the nuclear accident. Hu Zhuqiao, CGTN.
A U.S. judge will not issue an emergency order to halt the Trump administration's second travel ban, at least for now. 7 states are currently challenging the travel ban in court: Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, New York, Massachusetts, Maryland, and Hawaii. U.S. District Court Judge James Robart, who issued a restraining order on the first ban, declined to extend that order to cover the second. He said before he could rule on the issue, a new complaint or motion would have to be filed. The second travel ban is more narrowly written than the first. 6 of the 7 original Muslim-majority countries are included. Iraq was omitted after it agreed to increase visa screenings and data sharing. And while the ban still temporarily suspends the U.S. refugee program, it no longer bars Syrian refugees indefinitely. The new travel ban is set to take effect on March 16.
Malaysia reported an outbreak of the bird flu virus. The World Health Organization for Animal Health said Wednesday, March 8th, that Malaysia's Agriculture Ministry reported an outbreak of H5N1. The report said the strain was confirmed among chickens at a backyard farm in the northeast Malaysian state of Kelantan. Government officials later confirmed the virus after testing samples. Malaysia's health minister said Thursday that the highly contagious virus was contained and there were no reported cases in humans. 8 people, including 6 laboratory workers, were reportedly exposed to the virus. They were placed under 24-hour quarantine. Agriculture Committee Chairman Datuk Che Abdul Ahmad said authorities are tracing the source of the outbreak. He assured the public that poultry from the region is safe for consumption. Channel News Asia said more than 1,000 poultry birds were destroyed. The virus was also detected in Cambodia earlier last month. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Camry Caldwell.
Authorities say a 64-year-old Florida man tried to burn down a convenience store Friday because he thought it was owned by Muslims. The Palm Beach Post reports sheriff's deputies were called to a Metmart in St. Lucie for reports of a suspicious person. Deputies say Richard Lloyd had rolled a dumpster in front of the store's doors and set it on fire. Lloyd, who has been charged with arson, says he went to the Metmart a few days earlier and became mad because there was a Muslim working there and also because the store didn't sell orange pineapple juice. According to authorities, Lloyd said he wanted to burn the store down, quote, to run the Arabs out of our country and do his part for America. The sheriff's office says the store owners are actually of Indian descent.
Vice President Mike Pence took the argument of House Republican leadership's American Health Care Act to citizens on a warehouse floor in Kentucky, noting that there would have to be a battle in Washington, D.C. over the bill, stating that the GOP would need every Republican in Congress to get it passed. Pence said of Kentucky that the state was a textbook example of Obamacare's failures. As he spoke to the crowd of about 100 at the Harshaw Train warehouse, Pence informed the crowd that virtually every promise of Obamacare has been broken, adding that the Obamacare nightmare is about to end.
Protesters have gathered outside the Dutch embassy in response to the Dutch government's decision to bar the Turkish foreign minister from landing in the Netherlands. Demonstrators cheered and shouted slogans against the Netherlands over the increasingly divisive dispute, while access to and from the Dutch embassy was closed off for security reasons. The Turkish foreign minister was scheduled to address a rally in support of a Turkish referendum next month, but the action was deemed a threat to public order by the Dutch prime minister. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan issued a sharp rebuke, saying the Netherlands' behavior was reminiscent of Nazism. CGTN's Michal Bardavid has more.
The Turkish government was clearly very offended by the move by the Dutch government. There were very harsh statements issued by the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, who made a reference to Nazis, but also threatened to impose sanctions following the April 16th referendum in Turkey. Let's listen to Turkish President's statements.
Listen, Netherlands, you'll jump once, you'll jump twice, but my people will thwart your game. You can cancel our foreign minister flight as much as you want, but let's see how your flights come to Turkey now. They don't know diplomacy or politics. They're Nazi remnants. They're fascists.
There was also a statement made by the main opposition party. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, their leader, announced that they would be canceling all of their foreign trips in solidarity of the Justice and Development Party because they agree that this move by the Dutch government is just unacceptable.
More provocation from the rogue nation of North Korea as new reports surface that Pyongyang is preparing for its next nuclear test, days after launching 4 missiles. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is live from London. All right, Greg, what is the latest that we know about these so-called preparations now by North Korea?
Yeah, concerning stuff, Shannon. The reports come from a reliable U.S.-based North Korea think tank that we have used extensively in the past. They are looking at satellite imagery just taken in the past 24 hours or so, and they are seeing activity, as we have seen in the past, at a site in North Korea where testing has occurred, a sign, in their words, that Pyongyang could conduct a new nuclear test at short notice. The regime of Kim Jong-un has detonated 2 devices last year. There were 3 prior to that, each increasing in capability, each also working at building up the storehouse of nuclear material. The regime is now capable of building something like 25 bombs, according to experts. This is the testing, as you noted, of missiles continues, that aimed at carrying a nuclear warhead. In addition to the ones that were launched this week, there were a dozen ballistic missiles last year. Missiles getting closer to hitting the United States. All of this activity, Shannon, banned by the United Nations.
All right, Greg, what do we know about the political turmoil in South Korea? Big news coming out there overnight.
Huge news, and this is all in this context of trouble coming from the north, now chaos politically in the south. Thousands taking to the street in the capital of South Korea, Seoul, some clashing with police. 2 died following the skirmishes as South Korea's top court ruled that South Korea's president, Park Geun-hye, should be removed from office. Now, she had already been impeached by South Korea's parliament last December on a variety of corruption charges, including extortion and bribery. A new presidential election must be held, according to the court today, in 2 months. Now, the opposition party is favored to win. They favor a softer stance towards North Korea and a little bit less friendly stance towards the United States.
Ibrahim escaped Mosul, but the scars of ISIL persecution are with him forever. Is it still broken now? Are you not?
No. Before one year ago.
Okay. They broke
this
both hands.
This 3.
A hospital researcher and devout Muslim, he defied ISIL when they grabbed control of Mosul in 2014 by shaving his beard. As punishment, they broke both of his arms and beat him with wire cable. The Iraqis now fleeing Mosul tell similar stories of torture, executions, and most recently, starvation.
We have no food, no money. I am afraid from them. They hurt me and my family.
From this temporary location, the tens of thousands fleeing Mosul are taken to one of 21 area camps run by NGOs who predicted an internal refugee crisis from the military campaign's onset in October.
it could potentially be a huge emergency.
For Ibrahim and tens of thousands of others like him who escaped ISIL's clutches, the immediate emergency has passed. But Mosul's survivors remain haunted and traumatized by years of living under extremist rule. Stephanie Fried, CGTN, Mosul, Iraq.
For more than 25 years, animal rights lawyer Steve Wise has been arguing that animals who have cognitive complexities similar to humans should legally have the basic rights of autonomy. Wise, who founded the Non-Human Rights Project on behalf of great apes, cetaceans, and elephants, is going before the Supreme Court of the state of New York in Manhattan to argue that two of his clients, chimpanzees Kiko and Tommy, should be given the rights of personhood. Wise says personhood is not synonymous with humans. A person is the law's way of saying that entity has the capacity for rights. A specialist bomb squad has been sent to the Swedish city of Gothenburg after an explosion. According to Breitbart News, this second threat comes just 24 hours after a suspected car bomb rocked Stockholm. Authorities suspect the blast was caused by an attack involving some form of homemade device. The exact mechanism of the Gothenburg explosion is still unclear. However, the number of grenade attacks and car fires in Sweden has shot up in recent years, possibly because of warring gangs.
Unknown attackers launched a tear gas attack on a train in Hamburg. Reports say at least 6 were injured and 50 people total were affected, and led to a massive police presence at the Hamburg train station. 2 young men are believed to have perpetrated the attack. Paramedics and police arrived on the scene to treat the passengers of the train for various ailments, including respiratory injuries.
In the United States, a train carrying ethanol through rural northwest Iowa is still burning 15 hours after going off the tracks. The accident took place on Friday. 2 crew members escaped unharmed. A spokesman for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources says there had been, in his own words, a pretty big explosion. No one has been able to get within about 1/3 of a mile of the site. Officials expect the fire to burn out by Saturday.
President Trump has finally rolled out the replacement plan for Obamacare that had been promised since before Trump was elected into office. The plan, dubbed Trump Care, is not being well received by Democrats or Republicans for that matter. Many Republicans are saying that the new plan does not vary enough from Obamacare. They are calling for a bigger repeal on Medicaid expansion and stricter rules on insurance requirements.
The United Nations humanitarian chief says the world is facing its worst humanitarian crisis since the end of the Second World War, with more than 20 million people facing starvation and famine in 4 countries. Stephen O'Brien called for an urgent injection of $4.4 billion by July to fund people in northeastern Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. In particular, O'Brien called war-torn Yemen the largest humanitarian crisis in the world, with 2/3 of the population, over 18 million people, in need of aid.
The United Nations said Somalia and 3 other countries desperately need aid to save more than 20 million people from starvation and diseases. The UN humanitarian chief pleaded that the world come to the rescue of Kenya, Yemen, South Sudan, and Somalia. In Somalia, more than half of the country's population needs food assistance, since terrorists are stealing food from people in the country. In Kenya, more than 2.7 million people are at risk of starvation. South Sudan also had a famine recently declared and has more than 7.5 million people in need of assistance.
To stop him from addressing a political rally Saturday in Rotterdam, the Netherlands barred a plane carrying Turkey's foreign minister from landing. Amid concerns over public order at the expected large gathering of Turkish expatriates, the Dutch government announced that Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu's flight permit was revoked. Comparing the Dutch government to Nazis, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reacted angrily to the news. Addressing crowds at an opening ceremony in Istanbul, Erdogan said, "They are timid and cowardly. They are Nazi remnants and fascists." Erdogan had angered German Chancellor Angela Merkel earlier this week by making similar remarks about Nazism in her country.
The truth behind Zika is still not fully known. Although the topic of Zika calmed down after the Rio Olympics and Paralympics, scientists have still been busy studying the virus. The World Health Organization lifted the Public Health Emergency of International Concern designation for Zika November 2016. But according to Consumer Reports, between November 2016 and January 2017, some 4,000 new cases were reported in just the US and its territories. And new risks are continuously being found. For instance, cited in Time, researchers found in a new report that Zika may also cause heart problems. The study's author, Dr. Karina Gonzalez Carter, said, quote, "As days go by and more people are infected, we see different aspects of the virus." Carter goes on to say, quote, "We need to create awareness."